Welcome to the Explainer. After 30 years of working in actuarial science and risk management, you really start to look at the world a bit differently. You actually start seeing everything through this lens of probability, investment, liability, and yield. And you quickly realize that human energy, well, it's absolutely our most finite resource, and exactly how we allocate it dictates the entire trajectory of our lives. So today, we're applying that hard-earned analytical wisdom to a single 6-word axiom. We're going to take a concept that is usually completely steeped in raw emotion, and we're going to break it down mathematically, because when you do that, it actually shifts our entire paradigm of conflict.
The best revenge is massive success. Now, I know on the surface that sounds like a catchy bumper sticker, right? Something you might see printed on a cheesy coffee mug. But when we really look at it closely, when we strip away the ego and examine the actual mechanics of it, it's a highly calculated law of human dynamics. It isn't just a cliche at all. It is a profoundly effective strategy for personal resource allocation.
Section 1. The core axiom. Let's do a quick semantic breakdown.
To really understand the power of this phrase, we have to fracture this profound sentence. We're going to analyze its opposing forces through that precise, calculated lens of risk management, looking at the words themselves like they're variables in an equation. So how do we define the best? In the world of risk assessment, the best absolutely doesn't mean the most satisfying in the heat of the moment. It doesn't mean the loudest or the most aggressive. It implies strategic optimization. It means we're actively seeking the highest possible return on our invested energy while simultaneously minimizing our exposure to ruin. In any volatile situation, taking a hit can be damaging, sure, but acting impulsively, that can lead to absolute catastrophe. So we're looking for the optimal, mathematically sound path forward.
Moving right along to Section 2, the nature of revenge. We need to analyze the liability here.
Think about it this way. If we treat human emotion as an asset class, the desire for revenge is literally the most volatile and toxic derivative on the open market. We have to objectively assess this impulse before we ever act on it. Traditional revenge is defined as an emotional desire to inflict harm in return for an injury or wrong, and it almost always results in mutual destruction. From a strictly actuarial standpoint, this is a catastrophic allocation of your personal resources. Just think about the opportunity cost. You're taking your finite time, your intellect, and your energy, and you're spending it all simply to decrease someone else's value. It has a massively negative expected value. Even if you completely succeed in hurting them, your personal balance sheet remains entirely unimproved. You've gained absolutely no equity for yourself, and you have definitely burned invaluable time in the process.
Just look at the exact contrast between these two paths. Destructive retribution is focused outward, it's entirely reactive to someone else's behavior, and it carries incredibly high risk. Conversely, constructive achievement is focused inward. It is completely proactive, and it offers a massive, high yield. What the source material does here is honestly brilliant. It takes a destructive, chaotic impulse and flips it into a strictly constructive force. It takes that exact same raw, kinetic energy required for going to war and uses it to build an empire instead.
Which brings us to Section 3, defining massive success. Let's talk about the ultimate assets.
We're officially shifting our focus away from the liability of outward conflict and looking entirely at the strategic goal of undeniable achievement, massive success. When we isolate these two words, we really have to appreciate the absolute scale and objective nature of this goal. This isn't just about doing slightly better than the person who wronged you. No way. It's about creating a gap so astronomically wide between you and your detractors that their opinions, their actions, and honestly, their very existence are rendered mathematically irrelevant to your daily trajectory.
So why exactly is this the superior strategy? Let's quickly analyze the attributes. First, it's an unarguable metric of triumph. Success just speaks for itself, right? It requires zero debate or justification. Second, it is an entirely constructive outcome. You're building, not destroying. Third, and honestly this is the holy grail for a risk manager, it is 100% within your own control. You aren't sitting around relying on the downfall of an adversary or hoping they make a mistake. You're relying solely on your own output. And finally, it yields compounding personal value. Much like compounding interest in a robust retirement portfolio, the work you put into yourself today pays exponential dividends for the rest of your life, long after that initial conflict has completely faded away.
This entire philosophy actually builds into a formal risk matrix, and I absolutely love looking at decisions this way because it strips the ego out completely. Think about the investment side of things. Both traditional revenge and massive success require a huge investment of your energy and time. That upfront cost is identical, but now evaluate the yield. Traditional revenge gives you a negative outcome with a sky-high risk of collateral damage. It's a textbook sunk cost. Massive success, on the other hand, takes that exact same energy investment and converts it into a highly positive outcome with deeply mitigated risk. Actuarially speaking, if we prove this mathematically, one path leads inevitably to bankruptcy and the other leads to a compounding fortune.
All right, Section 4, the ultimate paradigm shift. It is time to fuse these concepts together. We've fractured the quote, we've analyzed those toxic liabilities, and we've clearly defined the compounding assets. Now let's bring these concepts back together to reveal the deep philosophical and strategic meaning of the complete axiom. Here is the calculated three-step process for executing the strategy in real time. Step 1. You encounter adversity or conflict. Now this is inevitable, it's just a known, unavoidable risk in the market of life. Step 2, though, is where the real magic happens. Instead of lashing out, you internalize that emotional drive. You capture the raw, kinetic energy of that anger or betrayal and you flat out refuse to spend it cheaply. Step 3, you reallocate that exact energy toward undeniable achievement. You're essentially acting like a master portfolio manager, taking a highly toxic, volatile asset and systematically restructuring it into blue-chip personal capital.
The best revenge is massive success. Having put this through a rigorous actuarial risk assessment, its meaning has completely transformed, hasn't it? It is no longer a simple saying, it's a masterful strategy for personal risk management. It completely acknowledges the very human, primal desire to respond to a wrong, but it mathematically optimizes the response so that you and you alone are the sole beneficiary of the transaction.
Which leads me to this final, provocative question for you to consider today. Where are you currently directing your energy? Seriously, take a hard look at your own personal balance sheet right now. Are you investing your finite time into the sunk costs of traditional revenge and outward conflict? Or are you actively reallocating that energy to build the compounding asset of massive success? Really think about your resource allocation and remember this hard-earned wisdom the next time you face adversity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this helps you optimize your path forward. Keep learning and keep building.